For this question, let's assume that a fire caused an insured loss of $36 million for a commercial building in a city, and that the owners of this building have an insurance policy from three different providers, where provider A gives them $40 million in coverage, provider B gives them $20 million in coverage, and provider C $60 million in coverage. When they go to file a claim for this amount of money, and then they have these three different providers, what's going to happen is each provider will cover a percentage or a fraction of this 36 million, and we're going to figure out what that amount is. To start with, we need to know the total face value of these three policies, and to figure out that amount, we take the 40 million from provider A, add that to the 20 million from provider B, and the 60 million from provider C to reach the total face value of $120 million. So that is the total face value of these three policies combined. For Part B, we need to determine the fraction of the cost that each insurance provider must pay. The way this will work is, let's say we start with provider A. Well, their policy is for 40 million out of a total 120. So we're going to take these two numbers and divide them. That's the fraction of the 36 million that they will owe. So that is, we take the 40 million, divide by the total face value of 120, and this is a repeating decimal. If you divide it in a calculator, it's 0.333 repeating, but that's the same thing as saying 1/3. 40 goes into 120 a total of 3 times. So that's the fraction of this amount that provider A must give. Same thing for provider B. The idea is, well, okay, they have a $20 million policy out of a total $120 million, and this reduces to 1/6. This is because 20 goes into 120 6 times. And then finally, for provider C, we take 60 million and divide that into the total face value of 120 million, and that's equal to a half. So you could use decimals here. You'd have to use quite a few just to make sure there's no rounding errors. I left them as fractions. It'll make it very easy to compute the values in Part C. So let's start with provider A. How much money do they actually owe of this 36 million? We take 36 million, multiply it by 1/3, and that's the amount that they owe. So I'll start with provider A. There's 36 million that we multiply by 1/3, and that actually goes perfectly into 36 to give us 12 million. For provider B, okay, again, what fraction of the 36 million do they owe? Okay, so the fraction we're going to use is 1/6, and 6 goes into 36 6 times, so that means 6 million. And lastly, for provider C, again, what fraction, what amount of the 36 million? And they're on the hook for, well, half of that. So that means if we divide 2 into 36, we get $18 million. Of course, it should be that these three amounts add up to the 36 million. You could check if you want to. So we have 12 million and 6 and 18 million, which adds up to 36. But this is the amount that each provider must pay.